My name is Victor. I am the occult technician, and this is Mind War. Mind War is sponsored by Victory Work Apparel. Use promo code Mind War. Join the Mind War today. Enlist at patreon.com/mindwar. Now, back to the show. Welcome back to Mind War, folks. I appreciate you being here. We have a lot to cover today, so let's get started. Folks, we're going to jump right into a series of advanced magical techniques. There's kind of three things that we're going to be looking at the beginning of this episode. Now, as we go through it, it may sound a little silly, but just follow along, follow with me, and I promise you this is something that was very interesting to learn. And it was even more interesting and it felt amazing to practice. So this first thing that we're going to look at is actually kind of a throwback to the Gateway Experience tapes and the idea of having an out-of-body experience. And of course, by using the enhancements of psilocybin while we listen to the tapes in order to help us achieve this out-of-body experience. So one of the things that we find with occultism, again, occult means hidden, and we see all throughout media that so many of these occult teachings were actually hidden right in plain sight, right in front of us. So I told you before, a few episodes ago, when we talked about the characters that sort of motivated me to create the character, the occult technician. I said that Dr. Strange was one of those characters, and that's who we're going to talk about here in the beginning. Now, when I was a kid, I was not a Doctor Strange fan. I didn't read the comic books or anything like that, but I did watch the Doctor Strange movie, and the one from Marvel/Disney, right? I really enjoyed that movie, and there was a particular scene in that movie that really infatuated me with the Doctor Strange character, and it really taught a lot to us, right? So I looked it up on YouTube. There's a video called Doctor Strange, Open Your Eye, and I think, let's see, the person who put it up, it goes by @Gasha007. It was up 6 years ago. It's got 2.3 million views if you want to look it up on YouTube. Now, because of copyright, folks, of course, I am not going to play this at all. And the images that I put up on the screen, I'm just going to do very quickly. Please, again, if you are Marvel, Disney, this is for education purposes only. You hid this information in your movie, and I am just trying to show the people, the folks out here in the Mind War podcast, the occult meaning of what you put in this movie. Okay. So Doctor Strange, right? This scene, basically, he had gone through some type of accident. I think it was a car accident or something, right? And it destroyed his hands. And now he was a surgeon. And so his life fell apart after this. And he found himself at the doorway of a dojo. And he basically waited there for what seemed to be days or weeks, right? And because they wouldn't open the door, and they finally opened the door and let him in, and now the scene plays out where he is sort of confronting the master of the dojo, who just happens to be a woman with a shaved head. Whatever, that's fine. And so he's going back and forth with her in this dialogue, talking about how he's not there to learn about refilling the chakras. Okay, so we have some symbolism there that we talk about here in the Mind War podcast. And he's basically saying, listen, I don't trust you. I don't believe the things that you're trying to tell me. I'm not interested in this stuff. And so basically what she had to do, instead of telling him, she had to show him. And so he's, getting in her face, and he puts his finger on her chest. And as soon as he touches her, this master at the dojo, I think she grabs his arm and then does a punch right to his chest, right? And in this scene, what we're seeing, again, I'm going to put a few very brief images up on the screen. Try to find this video again, Doctor Strange, Open Your Eye. You can look it up on YouTube. Watch the scene. What you see is as soon as she punches him in the chest, his body goes back a few feet, but his spirit separates from his body. And so now you see the scene playing out where Doctor Strange is having an out-of-body experience, okay? Now, that enough really caught my attention, okay? But when he's floating outside of his body for a few moments. He's looking at his hands. He's kind of looking around and realizing he's not in his body anymore. And once that realization sort of takes place, he goes and he just gets sucked back into his body, right? And so when he comes out of it, he's very upset, and he says, "How did you do this? Psilocybin or LSD or something else?" That was it, folks. That's what really caught my attention. So now, in a Disney/Marvel movie, we hear the main character mention psilocybin, aka magic mushrooms, the enhancements that I've talked to you about so much, how important they are to truly make the Gateway Experience tapes work, for you to really, truly have your out-of-body experience. They're showing him his spirit coming out of his body while, again, he's talking about psilocybin. And those two things, I put those two together in my head. And I don't remember if I watched this movie prior to starting my magic. I think it was part of the build-up into actually practicing my magic. Again, getting the psilocybin ready, getting the Gateway Experience tapes ready. That took me 6 months. I had to, grow the mushrooms. I had to get a copy of the tapes. I really took my time prior to starting magic. But I just wanted to really point that out. Again, they hide this information in plain sight for a reason. It's important. They tell us that this information is evil, right? They tell us that this type of stuff is evil and that we shouldn't practice it. The Abrahamic faiths all warn against this type of practice. But they do that for a reason, because they know that it is real. They know that what I am saying here is actually truth. Not the lies that we hear in the Bible, not the lies that you're going to hear when you're sitting in the pews at your church or whatever, right? Because again, in those religious institutions, you're going to hear them talk about men who've had spiritual experiences, but they tell you you're not allowed to have them, right? At most, you might have a feeling of closeness or something like that, but any type of actual occult spiritual experience, that's off the books, right? That's evil. You have to stay away from it. But again, there are people out there who know this stuff. The stuff that I'm sharing with you isn't new to me. I didn't discover it. I didn't create it. Again, these are the hidden knowledge that is passed through the symbolism in the media that we share today. So that was the first part, right? So that was, again, a scene from the movie Doctor Strange. You can go on YouTube and look up Doctor Strange, Open Your Eye. You'll see that scene, again, where he's hit and his spirit comes out of his physical body. When he returns after realizing he's had this out-of-body experience, he asks the master of the dojo, "Did you use psilocybin to induce this effect?" Amazing. Right there in plain sight this whole time. So this next one, this is the second part of kind of our three-part advanced magical technique, okay? That was more of just a reminder of what it means to have an out-of-body experience. Now, follow along with me here, folks, because this one's pretty silly, right? Basically, the silliness isn't the practice itself, but it's where they hit it. And that is our friends over at South Park. Okay, so again, I don't know that if I can even show this video. I may try to show it here on the screen one time very quickly. Please, again, if you are the creators of South Park or whatever, this is for educational purposes. You hid this information. You hid this occult information in your episode, and I'm simply trying to show the folks who are watching what you hid in there and how important and how real it actually is. Okay, so we have a video of one of the fathers of one of the South Park characters. I don't know all their names. My experience with South Park is when it actually came out, the very first season on Comedy Central, when I was still in high school. That's when I watched it. Very funny. The aliens coming down, all that stuff, hilarious. But I haven't kept up with it much after those first few seasons. But basically, we have one of the dads of one of the South Park, the boys, right? And I think he's in like a cabin, like a remote cabin or something. And you see him and he's standing there and he's doing all sorts of movements, right? He's moving around. He's doing this with his arms. And as he's moving, you're seeing this kind of symbols and these tracers following along with his hands, right? And again, it's a silly scene because what happens is he's in the cabin doing this, right, making all these movements. And then in this scene, you see his wife and some of the boys there. They're outside of the cabin and they're looking in at him. And they're like, what is Dad doing? This looks ridiculous because all you see is him just making these movements. They don't see the tracers that he is seeing. Okay? Are you following along with me here, folks? So as we finish the scene out, he's doing more of these movements. You see him creating these portals. He then floats and has multiple arms around him, right? Very interesting little scene. And this I just found on a reel. Somebody had made a reel out of this. And here's how this works, okay? Again, they hid this from us in plain sight. What this character is doing is 100% real, and you can do it during your ritual, all right? So, again, we've gone through our magic preparatory process. We've taken the low-dose THC and psilocybin. We've given them time to interact and start to take effect on us. We listen to one of the Gateway Experience tapes. We are in the state of somnambulance now. We are in that hypnotic state, the state of sleepwalking. Our altar has been prepared before we began. And so now we are standing in front of our altar. We have our hypnotic music, our trance-like music. We're listening to that to keep us in that state of somnambulance. And the room is dark except for one candle. You've seen this image over and over and over again in my art on Instagram. When I take the photos of my ritual, of my altar in front of me, this is what you're seeing, the darkness, and you see one candle. So what you're going to do is while you're listening to the music, you're standing there in front of your altar, you're doing your breath work, you're breathing along with the music. The music tells you when to inhale, when to hold your breath, when to exhale, when to hold your exhale, right? You're going to be staring at your altar. Now, because it's dark, the only light that you're going to have is the candle light. And again, you're going to be staring with your stare. You're going to use the stare where you're kind of, if you have the black mirror on your altar, or if you have your obsidian ball, you're going to be staring through it, but you're going to be looking at your altar in the wider sense because you're going to be standing back a little bit, looking at the entire thing. And now as you stare at it for several minutes, again, you're going to be doing this while you're listening to your music. The candlelight, again, the incense makes your eyes burn a little bit, but that candlelight is going to be absorbed into your eyes. Now, you can do this sober, but again, when you do it with the psilocybin, the effects are increased 10-fold, 100-fold, 1,000-fold, right? And so now, you've been standing there in front of your altar, you're staring at it, and now, again, much of the magic that we've talked about, your eyes are open and you're staring. But now, we just do one simple thing. We close our eyes. And what happens is because you're in that dark room and you only have that one single source of light that has been kind of burning into your retinas, as soon as you close your eyes, your altar is still there in front of you. You don't just see blackness. You don't just see darkness. You see a negative version of your altar, almost like if you're looking at a negative photograph, right? And so now you see it there in front of you. This is when we listen to the Gateway Experience tapes and we go into the sleep dojo. Remember, in those early tapes, we just go into the sleep dojo, the upside down world of Stranger Things, where you're just in the darkness. That's where you create things like your resonant energy toolbar, right? Your energy toolbar, aka your magic wand. This is where you create the mirror that you're going to stand in front of yourselves in order to do your healing. This is where you visualize things in the sleep dojo. But when that is happening, again, we're listening to the Gateway Experience tapes. We are having an out-of-body experience. But now when you're standing in front of the altar and you close your eyes, all of your altar is still there in front of you. You're still in your body. You're still there. You're grounded into your body, right? But it's amazing because it is a sort of, you're more awake at this time. Again, we're in the state of hypnosis. We're in somnambulance, that state of sleepwalking, but it's more of a conscious effort. It's very strange, right? But now you see your altar in front of you, this negative version of it. And guess what? Just like in this South Park little clip right here, when you move your hand, you're going to see the tracers of your hand in your mind. You can move them around. You can create portals. You can push energy into your black mirror or widen the mirror in your mind. You'll see it start to get larger, and you can push energy or pull energy out of it. Again, what you do in this state is up to you. I'm just trying to show you how to get there. I'm trying to show you what this character is doing. You can actually do this. Now, normally when I'm doing this, I like to use my magic wand while I'm doing this part of the ritual and create the portals or direct the energy. We'll talk about the magic wand in future episodes. But again, this is hidden in plain sight, folks. They even make light of this. They again, the characters go, what is Dad doing in there? This looks ridiculous, because they don't see what he is seeing in his mind, right? But I promise you, it is 100% real. You can do this over and over and over again with the advanced magical technique that I just shared with you. Again, you go through your preparatory process, your magical preparatory process. Low dose THC, low dose psilocybin, listen to the Gateway Experience tapes. You come out, you're in front of your altar. The room is dark, you have one candle lit. You have your trance-like hypnotic music. Again, I suggest finding Evil Aesthetic on YouTube and listen to the Don't Sleep video. We talked about that a few episodes ago. You can find it in my playlist on YouTube called Magical Music if you want a direct link to it. So you're listening to the music, You're staring at your altar. You don't necessarily have to stare at the candle, but you're staring at the altar so you can get the wider vision of it. It's burned into your retinas in a way because the room is so dark. And then you close your eyes. When you close your eyes, you're going to see a negative version of your altar in front of you. This is magic, okay? Here's a perfect example. One of the things about magic, and again, this episode, this little clip here is perfect because, again, when the wife and kids are standing outside of the cabin and looking in at the dad, they don't see the magic that he sees. Now, I taught my nephew this, okay? And I taught him with this piece of art behind me, the sigil behind me. Now, this was from early on. Remember, I went to a healing seminar here. I took all my art projects there. I showed you pictures of it. I was standing in front of the art. I was kind of showing it off to people, trying to meet other healers and esoteric folks. And again, my family came. My nephew was there, just a great kid. And I said, buddy, here's the fastest way that I can describe magic for you, where you can actually see it right now. And so what I did is I took my phone and I found a video with the hypnotic swirl, right? The hypnosis swirl, just the white and black swirl. It just goes over and over and over again, right? And you can do this today. You can do it right now. So you find that video with a hypnotic swirl. There's plenty of them out there. And I said, here, stare at this for 1 minute, right? And so he's staring at it and staring at it. I said, don't blink your eyes. Just stare at it the whole time. And then as the minute mark approached, I said, okay, in just a moment, I'm going to have you put the phone down, and then I want you to stare at this art piece in front of you. So he's standing in front of the sigil. He's looking at the hypnotic swirl, right? Swirling back and forth. And then after a minute, he puts the phone down. And here's what happens. I've done this countless times with this exact piece of art behind me. When you stare at that hypnotic swirl for a minute without blinking, and then you look at a piece of art like this, you can just look at your room, right? This piece of art came to life. It was breathing and swirling, and it looks literally, the black parts here look like rivers flowing back and forth. The whole thing is breathing and swirling. It is the hallucination. It's a minor, minimal version of the hallucinations that you're going to have while you're truly doing your magic, right? Again, with all the preparatory process, the psilocybin's kicking in. You know, my nephew just did it sober. He's just a young guy. He was a teenager at the time, right? And he saw it, and he goes, holy shit, Uncle Vic, what was that? That was wild. And I said, buddy, that's what magic is. I said, you're the only one that saw that. No one else here saw it. They saw a kid who was being weird, staring at a phone and then looking up at a piece of art, right? That's what they saw. But you saw the magic, and that's what's important. And that's exactly what this South Park clip represents, folks. Again, I can look at this South Park clip and talk to you about it the same way that I saw the Doctor Strange clip and can talk to you about it with authority because I've done it. I've proven it through science. Again, with the Doctor Strange thing, with that clip there, he talks about psilocybin while he's having an out-of-body experience. I've done those things. I've experienced it dozens and dozens and dozens of times. It can be replicated over and over and over again. That's science, folks. When you figure out a formula for whatever it is that you're working on and you can repeat it over and over and over again, that's science. Plus, you have to take notes. If you don't take notes, it's just a hobby. So remember, write in your journal every time you do it. Then you become a scientist, and not just a hobbyist. And that might keep you out of trouble one day. Again, with this South Park clip, right? I can speak on it with authority because I can show you how to do it. You don't even have to go through the whole magical preparatory process. Again, you can just do it by watching the hypnotic swirl and then looking at a piece of art in front of you. You will see it come alive. You will have hallucinations. You will see things that the people around you don't see, and that's magic. That's part of the process, seeing a world where the other people don't. Now, again, this character from South Park, he's creating these portals. He's doing all of this stuff where he's having multiple arms, all of that, right? Just like Doctor Strange in the movie. When you watch the Doctor Strange movie, you're going to see him creating these portals. You're going to see symbols being created all around him. You can do the same thing. That's part of the magical technique. That's one of the advanced magical techniques that I'm sharing with you here. They hid it in occultism. They used occultism to hide it in our media. And I'm simply here, again, trying to show you. They hid it right in front of us. And now, just like the video says, open your eye. Open your third eye. Look at these things. Like we talked about with some of the horror movies at the beginning, early stages of the Mind War series on magic here. We talked about how they hide things within these horror movies. Look past the gory, reveal the story. They're hiding these things because, again, they are out there practicing these things. And again, a perfect example. The wife and the kids, they're sort of laughing at the dad. Look at him. Look how silly he looks. Because they know that they want to make that a jester. They want to make that look silly. So people say, oh, I'm never going to do that. That's ridiculous, right? But again, they hid it in front of us. And I know it's silly. I know it's ridiculous to talk about South Park in this way. But they brought it to life. They showed it to us, right? So, all right, folks, that was the second part of our advanced magical technique for today. And I know I promised a third part. This was kind of a 3-part technique here. Now, this is, again, it's going to be a little embarrassing. This is me. I recorded this video just a little while ago outside. It's freezing here in the Mind War Estates, so I hope you folks appreciate what I do for you here. So I had to go outside and record this because the Moon Princess is upstairs sleeping, and I didn't want to bother her, never wake a sleeping baby. And so I told you folks that I do some stretches, some ritualistic type stretches during my practice, right? During my rituals. And so normally I do these, what we're going to see here in just a moment. I do this after listening to the Gateway Experience tapes, before I sit down in front of the altar. But at this point I've lit the candle, the room is dark, the incense is burning. I'm listening to the Don't Sleep hypnotic music, and this stretching technique that we're going to see here in a moment. I do this while I'm listening to the music. And this came from the OTO. There is a secret society called the OTO, the Order Templarius, something, right? Sorry, guys. There was a podcast, The Occult Rejects. There was a guy named Lux from the Occult Rejects. He was a Marine veteran as well. He was on there with NY Patriot. These are both men who joined Freemasonry, different versions of Freemasonry, spent their time with it, but then came out of it and said, we did not get anything out of it that we thought. And they, like myself, took it upon themselves to learn deeper and do deeper type practices. And so one of the things that the OTO does is really what I'm doing is a version of what they do. So they are they go and basically in each of the 4 directions, they do this sort of ritualistic stretching, these movements, right? And they'll use their hands also with a magic wand, and they will draw a pentagram in the air, but they're doing something about calling forth like the archangel Michael and Gabriel and all these angels, and they're trying to call the angels to them to protect them before they do their demonology. I don't know. I tried it once, folks. It was fake. It was gay. I was not interested in it. It didn't feel real to me. It didn't feel natural to me. And again, throughout my work, I've shared that with you over and over again. If something doesn't feel natural, if something doesn't feel right deep inside, then reject it. Move on. But there was something about the stretching that I thought was important. And I liked the idea of doing it 4 times in each of the different directions. So we're going to look through, and I'm going to show you the video. I'll just start playing it here. So this is the stretching technique that I do. And basically, we'll just watch through it one time. I put my hands up in the air. We're pointing upwards. Then I pull them down to my chest. My legs are at shoulder width apart now. My arms go out to the side. I hold that for a moment. And then as we go through, I bend down, cross my arms to my feet. And then in just a moment, I stand up. My arms are across my chest. And then to finish up, my arms go back down to my side. Okay, so what does this mean? So we're going to start with that very first movement, right? We start at basically parade rest. For all of you military folks out there, you Marines, you know what I'm talking about. And basically I step out with my foot. Again, feet are going to be just a little bit wider than shoulder width apart. In hands, they're going to go straight up into sort of a triangle pattern, right? And basically this first shape that we're seeing here, we've created the base. We've created a triangle. We've created a pyramid. We're holding that shape of power. It's one of the most powerful shapes in geometry, the triangle, the pyramid, right? So we're holding that. Again, all of these movements, while you're doing this, you're going to be listening to your music. You're going to be doing your breath work along with the music. The music is not only going to tell you when to inhale, it's going to tell you when to hold your inhale. It's going to tell you when to exhale. So when the beat drops, you exhale. Now, the most important part, it's going to tell you when to hold your exhale. It's when you hold the exhale, that's when the world starts to really vibrate and really starts to change around you. So again, while you're doing this stretching, you're listening to the music, you're breathing along with the music, you're doing the Kundalini, but you're also moving with the music. The music will tell you when to move. You're going to get into the rhythm. It may take a few times, but you're going to allow the music to guide you through these movements. So now our hands are up in this pyramid shape, right? And we are harnessing that energy. Again, while you're breathing, while I'm doing this, I'm doing the reverse resonant energy balloon. I'm pulling that darkness into my mind. I'm pulling it down from above, from the abyss. And now, as the movement continues, we pull that energy and we push it down into our chest, right? We're pulling the energy down and we're holding it in our chest. This is what we've talked about before. We don't release our anger. We don't release our hatred. We don't dull it with alcohol. We don't release it with self-harm. We pull that anger in and we hold it. We harness it in our chest, right in our heart, and we crystallize it. We just crush it into a ball of obsidian, which then fuels our actions. And what are our actions? Doing things like art projects, doing things like making the podcast, doing whatever it is that you're going to be led to do, right? Not violence, not flying off the hook, right? Doing all that's the profane. They do that shit, right? Not us, not as magicians. We do not do that, okay? So now we're pulling that energy down. We're holding it inside. We're allowing it to crystallize. And then our next movement, we are going to pull our arms out to the side. So now our arms are fully out. And what we're doing now is that crystallized energy that we compressed in our chest, we're going to push it out. Again, just like the book, Magic, History, Theory, Practice by Dr. Ernst Schertl. We're on the practice section. He talked about how magicians hold this power, this latent energy inside of us, right? That's what we're talking about. So now you've compressed that energy, you've compressed it into your obsidian ball, and now you're going to push that energy out and send it in whatever direction you need, right? Wherever you are trying to send that energy, whether you are sending it out to external places and external people and forces, whatever, or if you are just trying to create again, your resonant energy balloon for self-protection, for protection for you and your family and your friends. Whatever the work is that you're doing, you send that energy out. And again, we went from the pyramid shape, and now we're standing in the star shape, okay? I found these things to be, again, the OTO in their practice, I didn't connect with it. I found these shapes and these movements to be much more powerful than what they did. And again, while you're doing this, you are going to be seeing the tracers. You're going to be seeing this energy flow all around you. Okay, this is again why we did all three of these advanced magical techniques back to back here, because all of it is visualization. You can do it with your eyes open or eyes closed, whatever works for you. But again, you're going to be doing it. These movements are going to be coordinated by the music you're listening to. Your breath work is going to go in rhythm with the music. The music will guide you on when to do these movements. So now that we've sent this energy out, we go from the star position where we're standing up to a more compressed star position. You see, this is also sort of a star, but now I am crouched down. My arms are crossed from left to right. I'm touching my feet as best I can. All right, again, your buddy Victor here. I'm an old guy. And this helps with the blood flow. Again, you're doing this after laying down for 35 to 45 minutes while listening to the Gateway Experience tapes. So before you then go from laying down to then sitting down in front of your altar, this really helps get the blood flowing, right? It really helps with the Kundalini process, with the breathing technique. You're really going to start to feel those energies flowing through your breath work. And again, now we're kind of crouched down in that star-like position. We hold that for a moment, again, compressing ourselves, and then I stand up and we move into the crossed arm position, right? Sort of like when you see someone laying in the casket, you see pictures of all the Egyptian pharaohs, all their statues are kind of standing like this. I don't fully know what it represents, but for me, it was bringing things back to a real solid position, holding in tight the power that I wanted to maintain, and really solidifying the action that we just went through. Whatever your process, your purpose was, you're solidifying it in this movement. And then we go and we start back. Our arms fall back to the side, and we go back to that parade rest. And then you can right face, you turn to the right, do that 4 separate times in each different directions, north, south, east, and west, right? So again, that was the third of the advanced magical techniques for today's episode. I hope you like this, man. This was a long one. We really ran on with it, but I was going to try to put these in separate episodes, but I thought compressing them all into one could really, I think it really helped solidify and helped paint a picture of what we're trying to do here. Again, we had the clip from the movie Doctor Strange, Open Your Eye. You see him coming out of his body, having an out-of-body experience after the master from the dojo hit him in the chest. He came back and said, did you do that with psilocybin? That was that occult hidden knowledge right in front of our face. Disney and Marvel gave it right to us, telling us that psilocybin is going to help increase the effects of having an out-of-body experience while we listen to the Gateway Experience tapes. Then we had the clip from South Park of the dad. He's in the cabin. He's doing all these silly movements. The wife and kids are outside looking at him. They're joking on him, going, what is this guy doing? But in his mind, what he is actually seeing is the tracers. He's seeing the portals being created. He's seeing himself sort of multiply and levitate. You can actually do this. You do this, again, by going through your magical preparatory process. You're standing in front of the altar with just your candle in the dark room. You stare for a few minutes, and then you close your eyes. When you close your eyes, you see the altar in front of you. It's a negative view. As you move your hands around, you're going to see the tracers in your mind. As you move your magic wand, you're going to be able to create the portals in front of you to push energy into or pull energy out of. Whatever your purpose is for doing that, however you want to do it. Again, I'm just teaching you the techniques. I'm not telling you why to do it. I'm not telling you what to believe when you're doing it. That's the beauty of chaos magic, right? There isn't a whole lot of rules to follow for the actual practice or the style of it or any of those things. I'm just trying to show you, here's the things that I did to have some real true experiences. And again, they are corresponded. They are shown to us in our mass media. They're hidden in plain sight. Again, you can do this today. Get your phone, find the hypnotic swirl videos, stare at that phone for 1 minute straight without blinking, and then look up at a piece of art like the one behind me. You're going to see it breathe and move and swirl. And again, this shows, just like the South Park clip shows us, that the magician is going to see and experience things that the profane do not. Do you folks understand what I'm saying here? And then the third part of today's advanced magical technique is, again, I made that promise that I was going to show you these stretches. It's a little embarrassing, but this was a take from the OTO. I didn't really connect with what they did, trying to, call upon the guardians of the angels and all this stuff by making a pentagram. It just didn't feel right to me. Instead, I came up with my own movements. And again, you're going to, while you do these movements, and again, you don't have to do these, come up with your own as well. I'm just showing you what I came up with. But what you're going to do is, as you do your magical stretch, you are guided by the music. The music is going to tell you not only when to inhale, when to hold your inhale, when to exhale, when to hold your exhale. It's also going to tell you when to move. You're going to feel it, folks, right? There isn't a formula that I can write down for you. It's going to be all about feeling. You're going to know, the music is going to guide you. So I hope you enjoyed today's advanced magical techniques. And when we get back, we're going to jump back into the book Magic History Theory Practice by Dr. Ernst Schertl in just a moment. All right, welcome back, folks. We're going to pick up where we left off from the book Magic History Theory Practice by Dr. Ernst Schertl. We're on page 100, and we left off with a paragraph. And it looks like it's about the second paragraph here, and it starts with this. Again, this book, Magic History Theory Practice by Dr. Ernst Schertl, was supposedly one of Adolf Hitler's favorite books, most read books in his library. There was a historian who did a documentary called Hitler's Library, I believe is what it's called. And he found Hitler's version of this book, and it was, of all of the books, it was the most worn down book. You could see the pages were sort of tattered, and there was all sorts of highlights throughout the book that Adolf Hitler made in his copy. And so this next paragraph is a paragraph that Adolf Hitler highlighted in his book, also one that I highlighted. Let's see what it says. The awakening of a new basic attitude towards existence is not the first thing that we must do, but the first thing that must happen in us. Only when this completely irrational, above moral, and above personal transformation has taken place inside of us will all instructions given here gain a sense. There is no directive and no rule which could replace this unique act or could be compared with it. Okay. Again, part of this chaos magic that we do is there isn't, again, a specific style, a specific purpose, a set of words that you have to regurgitate over and over again. Again, the things that I show you are what could be considered, or what I like to call, magical techniques, these advanced magical techniques, things that we do after we do our magical preparatory process. Again, I fashioned this series the same way that Robert Monroe would teach us advanced techniques while listening to the Gateway Experience tapes. He would tell us, listen, when we get to the actual practice part of today's tape, you're going to do whatever you came to do, whatever your purpose for this tape is. But in order to get into the state of mind and the state of being, the out-of-body state, where our second state moves out of the physical body, we have to go through a certain set of steps, right? Those are those universal techniques. The advanced magical techniques, again, universal to all people, but why you do them and what you do with them, that's up to you. That's the beauty of what we're doing here. This isn't get down on your knees and pray 5 times a day in a specific direction, or reread hamana, 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 right, over and over and over again. That's nonsense. That's for the profane. That's for the mindless, right? Where they need to be told every single thing and every single purpose of why you do this. That's not what we do here. I'm here to free you from those things. That's why I come down here every day. It's to free you from all of that nonsense and share with you the techniques, those universal magical techniques where you can actually experience magic. The results are up to you, and that's the beauty. And we're going to start talking about results here in future episodes, folks, and it's going to get real deep. So let's go back to this, the awakening of a new basic attitude. So again, we are trying to awaken a new basic attitude in ourselves, a new aristos. This is part of the transformation. We have to have an awakening of a new basic attitude towards existence, towards life, right? One of the beauties that I've found through my magical work, especially through my time going through the Gateway Experience tapes, and in those final months when I was helping Mother Mind War succumb to her cancer and move into the afterlife, one of the things that I realized, the most important thing maybe that I took away from this, is I no longer fear death. I understand that death, there is something beyond it. There is life after death. That's a beautiful feeling. The only fear that I have now is of life. I've told you that before. The fear of never being able to die. None of us have ever actually died. We don't know if death is real, no matter how close we've come. No one who is listening to this right now has ever died, including myself. I still do not know if death is real. So again, the biggest fears that I have are unending life and truly pain. I think every human is afraid of pain. Now, I know that there is no fear here in the Mind War, but those two things that I just talked about, life and pain, those are part of reality. Those are part of real life. This isn't part of magic, right? Through what we do in magic, often we are trying to escape the pain. We escape the physical pain. I've told you before, when you listen to the Gateway Experience tapes with the psilocybin, it may be one of the 2 hours out of your life every 2 weeks where you finally don't experience pain. It may be the only time you're truly pain-free when you're having these out-of-body experiences. So we escape the reality of pain, and we escape the reality of an unending life that we don't know if it will ever end or not. So that's part of this basic attitude, this no more fear of death, right? And again, a basic attitude of really more accepting the things that are coming at us. Life is crazy right now. We live in a wild world. I don't fear that stuff as much anymore. Now it's more of enjoying the show. But the awakening of the new basic attitude towards existence is not the first thing that we must do. The first thing that must happen in us, so again, it has to happen in us, only when this completely irrational, above moral, and above personal. So again, irrational. This change in us is going to seem irrational because it goes against everything that society, culture, and religion has taught us. All the organizations, corporations, and institutions have told us you are not supposed to be learning these things, and you are definitely not supposed to be practicing them, right? So it may look irrational. And again, it says above moral. Well, wait a second. Morality, I've said before, we are all born moral. Okay, this is the opposite of that Christian filth that tells you that you are a born sinner, that you are born dead. That is a filthy lie. That is a lie used to control you through guilt and shame, and it's awful, right? And often what it does is it leads people to do immoral things. That's not what we're talking about here. Above moral, again, these things that we're practicing here are called evil by the people who try to control us. That's why they say it's above moral and above personal. These changes that are going to occur within you, it's not just a personal thing because, like we're doing here, like the only real commandments here in the Mind War is you have to have your own experiences and share it with others. So this is above personal. Yes, these changes are personal in me, the same way that they're going to be personal in you. And when you have them, you have to share with others. We have to proselytize this information. Otherwise, there will be no new culture. Okay, you have to do it somehow. You don't have to come out and make a podcast like I'm doing. You don't have to try to share it with the world like I am, but you have to share it with at least one other person. This transformation has taken place inside of us. Will all instructions given here gain a sense, right? So again, all of these advanced magical techniques that I've been sharing with you, again, I didn't understand them at the time. I didn't really understand what I was doing, but I kept trying new things. These instructions, these ideas that were coming to me through media, like Doctor Strange, like South Park, whatever it is, right? Wherever that information comes, let's try it. Let's see what it does. And now it starts to make sense. We're finding that occult hidden messages that are hidden in the media. And then it says, again, there is no directive and no rule which could replace this unique act or could be compared with it. There's nothing that I can write down. There's no rules that I can write down that are going to compare with finding these things on your own. Because again, as you go through, if you do the advanced magical techniques that I talked about earlier in this episode, you're going to see and do things that I've never done, that are well advanced beyond anything that I've ever done, right? And that's the beauty, right? Just go out there and do it. Do whatever your purpose is. Just do it. Let's go on here. It says, if the fertilization by a living master is missing, we have to rely on a diffuse self-fertilization, which requires a high creative potency and includes the necessity of exhausting detours whose traces are never completely obliterated. Okay, folks. The fertilization by a living master, I considered myself, now that I have gone through this work, Now that I've become a magician, we'll talk about that in future episodes, exactly how that happened. I do consider myself to be a living master. Now, you and I are not in close contact. We are not in physical contact, but we are in contact through this media, right? Not only am I talking to you through the screen, you're hearing what I'm saying, but also you know that you can contact me on Instagram, contact me on YouTube at the occult technician at gmail.com. If you have further questions, right, we can communicate that way. But you are in contact with someone who has awakened, ascended, whatever you want to call it. Again, I'm not saying that because I'm putting myself above others, anything like that. I'm saying that I'm this great awakened guy. I'm still just a normal guy at the end of the day, right? I'm still living a normal life, but I used magic over these last few years to transform my life, to become something new, and that's the purpose of magic. That's why I'm sharing it with you, is that transformation like we just talked about. It says, if you are missing that connection, you have to rely on a diffuse self-fertilization. That's what I went through. Finding the information where I could find it. Again, the way that I got to this book, Magic History Theory Practice by Dr. Ernst Schertl, was by listening to a podcast called No More News with Adam Green. He had on an author who wrote a book called Occultism in Nazi Germany, something like that, right? And in his book, he referenced this book, right? It was a multi-layered stage to get to this book. And this is the book where I actually found real truths on magic. Again, along with the other media like we talked about in the earlier episode. This self-fertilization requires a high creative potency, okay? So I'm definitely a very creative guy. You can all see that in my art, in the podcast, and everything that I'm doing here. Very creative. It took a lot of creativity. I hope that you can find your creative avenue as well, no matter what it is. It might not be wooden art like you see here, or making digital media through the podcast, or photography, things like that. But whatever your creative medium, it's going to guide you through your magical work. It's going to give you a purpose. Again, when I was making this stuff, folks, I had no idea why. Why am I making this art? None of this makes any sense, but I was just being driven, almost forced to make this work. And these pieces of art that you see in front of me and stuff, a lot of it came prior to even thinking about starting magic. I created these symbols really just to kind of make some American flags and make something that was a little different, right? I saw a video where somebody made a triangle like this, but he made it for a chair, and that just gave me the idea of creating an American flag, more of an art piece instead of a practical chair piece, right? But again, sometimes you get guided through your creativity and you end up having these much larger projects that are created from it. And it includes the necessity of exhausting detours. Again, we've talked about this before. I think we're going to talk about it more later on in this episode. This idea that when I started magic, when I started the podcast, my ego was telling me that I needed to create a t-shirt company where I could sell t-shirts for other podcasts. I joined the Kill Podcasters Network. All of this stuff we'll talk about again. We talked a lot about in season 2. And all of that stuff fell through the wayside. It allowed me to refocus on the real purpose of what I'm doing here and create the year-long series on the Gateway Experience tapes that ended up, you know the story, folks. And those traces are never completely obliterated. So let's go on here. It says, whose fate is leading him to where he is entering? Because of his own power, or lifted up by a master, the magic level has reached the stage of the pupil, and only him does it serve a purpose to consciously continue the work and observe certain rules and directives. So again, whether you are working with a master, you're going to be, it says pupil here, or initiate, right? Again, one of the things that I talked about, because I didn't have a master to follow, we followed the ancient masters, the old timers, through their books, through the words that they wrote on paper. And then Again, we've talked about this before. Creating the character Uncle Vic. Uncle Vic became the master. He was the one teaching me because I was teaching myself, but he became the character that was teaching me to do this work, right? I talked about Uncle Vic being the commander of the Mind War, leading us into this podcast, right? Only from this point of view does the above given description of the effect of foods, poison, etc. bear a meaning. For the profane man, these are merely questions of hygiene, which the doctor has to decide. Also, the above indicated gymnastics have only for the real pupil more than just a mere sanitary value. No one previously became a magician because of gymnastics and the observation of certain food directives, if not the seed for it had fallen into him from somewhere. Again, the stretching, the magical stretching that I showed you earlier, it's not just your job to follow exactly what I did. That's not what we're talking about, because no amount of repeating the movements that I made are going to have magical effects on your life. Again, if you're bowing down on your hands and knees 5 times a day because someone is forcing you to, that's not spirituality. All right? That is more religion. That is more, being totalitarianism. You're living under a tyranny of religion when they are forcing you to do this. There's nothing spiritual about that. That's literally going through the numbers. You think those men, when they bow down 5 times a day, are actually putting their effort and energy into it? No, they're doing it because they have to. They're doing it because they know they're going to be, beaten and thrown out of the community if they're not. It's sad. That's not what it is. You cannot just repeat these same homina, 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 and have it mean anything to you. You can't join a secret society and go through their little silly initiations and all this stuff and have it mean anything to you. You have to find it on your own. But who has the rank or receives it in any merciful moment can increase his powers with such things. Also, during the ceremony of certain magical measures, certain postures and motions play an important role, just like the ingestion of or abstinence of certain substances. Again, that's why we talked about the magical stretches today. Again, I didn't read ahead. I didn't know this paragraph was coming up. Maybe it's just a coincidence, but we know there's no coincidences here in the Mind War. These movements that you do, again, and then the ingestion of certain substances, aka the psilocybin, when you do this, it helps increase the flow of increase the effects of the toxins, right? The already mentioned gymnastics have to aim to deepen the body feeling, to clarify and amplify. Again, that breathing technique is going to help amplify the effects of the psilocybin. And really, you just doing the breath work and the kundalini on its own, those are sober-minded, natural things that you can do, plus the semen retention, all of that type of stuff, right? These are natural things outside of the psilocybin. All of this stuff is going to amplify and clarify your animism, that state of being where we can truly feel our emotions, breaking free of the calcified pineal gland, right? But moreover, to create certain sensations by practicing motions and assuming certain postures. Again, I didn't read ahead, folks. I just had this feeling when I started this episode, because honestly, the 3 magical techniques we talked about, I was going to do 3 separate episodes. But there's something inside, just kept telling me, you got to crunch it all in the beginning of today's episode. And I know we're going really long here, folks. So let's go on here. It says, sensual is how such practices are described, which serve in a smooth manner an increase of the body feeling as articular. On the other hand, those postures and motions which influence the body feeling by over-bending individual joints. The sensual practices stand for a passive listening into the body and are therefore preferably happening out of a state of relaxation. Okay, So again, we are pushing ourselves past, our normal joints where it feels comfortable. Again, we're just talking about stretching, folks. I stretch all day long. I'm popping my joints. I'm stretching my muscles, right? I'm a busted up old Marine. That's what happens to us, in my later 40s now. Everything hurts. Everything's locked up all the time. So I'm always pushing myself through that. And when I do, I find myself that physically I'm feeling better. I'm physically able to start moving around again and get done all of the things that I need to do. And it says here, we are listening to the body, and we are preferably, all of this is happening out of a state of relaxation, the state of somnambulance, the state of hypnosis. We are in a sleepwalking state while we do this stuff. When you're doing it in your actual ritual. The articular practices, on the other hand, represent a violent, almost mechanical pushing and bending of individual joints or of the whole body. The articular practices. I'm not sure what those are. Again, maybe that's the profane who are forcing themselves into doing physical things that really truly have no meaning to them. They are happening out of a state of increased tension. I mean, doesn't that sound exactly right? You're being forced to get down on your knees and pray in a certain direction 5 times a day. Again, there's increased tension there. You're not relaxed. You're being forced to do it because if you don't, you're going to be punished. God, what kind of way is that to live a spiritual life? That sounds like hell. But I'm empathetic for those men who are forced into that religion. If both forms are combined, then certain slinging motions are generated which can be of the more smooth or even of the wildest kinds. These practices are supported by certain breathing methods. Again, all of these movements that you're going to be doing, they are guided by your breath, and all of it ultimately is guided by the music. Now, what the author here is talking about is more of those smooth movements, but also maybe more wild, articulated movements where you are swinging around. You saw at the beginning of the video my magical stretching. That was much more slow and controlled. It wasn't wild. I wasn't flailing around. But if that's part of your magic, then maybe it is. If you need these larger bursts of physical expression in order to exert that energy, or in order to direct it where you need to, fine, so be it. So that was our reading today from the book Magic History Theory Practice by Dr. Ernst Schertl. Again, I know we went very long with today's advanced magical techniques. We had a short reading today, and folks, we're actually going to skip going over to Instagram and carrying on with my magical journey today because we are already at 1:15. I can't keep these episodes running as long as I have been. So I appreciate you being here. And as always, remember, folks, harden your hearts and open your minds, because this is Mind War.